what is Hadoop administration actually, and I mean what are the different top 5 Hadoop administration tasks are. So first important part, why Hadoop administration? See, when you have a big data cluster in your infrastructure, okay, so big data cluster is more about having all the Hadoop services plus its ecosystem services. We'll talk about the on not only Hadoop, but we'll also talk about the Hive, HBase, Impala, Sentry, Solar, lot of other activities when you have a lot of other services when you have in the Hadoop cluster. So it's very cumbersome to actually plan all these services, and then to monitor them, to actually manage all these services on all the nodes. So when we talk about Hadoop administration, okay, so Hadoop cluster is, yes, one of the most important activity, but what after that? How will you manage those clusters? How will you actually uh, integrate those clusters with the existing systems? How will you monitor the activities? How will you monitor the activities, or let's say how will you do the audit logging? Okay, so a lot of stuffs which is really required by the customers, okay, on the Hadoop cluster. How will you manage all of those users? Okay, so Hadoop administration is really required because not only the technical aspects from the technical aspects, but also with the rise of Hadoop adoption and usage across various industries, the role of Hadoop administrator has become very, very important and is in demand. So with this slide, you can easily make sense out of it that how the Hadoop implementation is really increasing, as well as what are the plans for the next 12 months of deploying Hadoop clusters, and plans to deploy, but may take longer than 12 months because it's really, really difficult to manage these clusters, or let's say to activate to bring the clusters to a state through which all the users can run their queries and resolve all the use cases they're trying to solve. So Hadoop administration certainly provides you better career opportunities, opportunity to work with big players in the field. So when we talk about big players, pharmaceutical companies, banking, financial institutions, insurance companies, manufacturing companies, a lot of different players, big players are in the market and looking for good Hadoop administrators, and much better salary than uh, uh, the basic, or I'll say the classic technologies we have, along with including Java and then C, C++ kind of things. So Hadoop administration has a lot of responsibilities. So when you are a Hadoop administrator, talking from the support and maintenance. Okay, so yes, support and maintenance is one of the important aspect, but these days it's more about providing the security, monitoring the Hadoop cluster, what all parameters you want to monitor. How will you secure your Hadoop clusters, because you are not running just the Hadoop services, you're running with a lot of other services like NameNode, DataNodes, job tracker, resource manager, node manager, etc. You're running with Hive, HBase, Impala. How will you provide the security to your databases, to your data, and how will you audit log them? How will you actually navigate all those Hadoop distributed file system? And then how will you integrate different frameworks, which is very, very important when you are integrating Hive, Flume, Scoop, Mahawat, Uzi. How will you integrate different frameworks? And then how will you maintain this whole infrastructure? Okay, from a client's perspective, you always want to secure your cluster, because you don't want that any client can access the Hadoop services directly. So you want to create a gateway node, or let's say an edge node, through which client will access the Hadoop cluster. So how will you manage this infrastructure? How will you maintain this infrastructure? Okay, so these are the very major and very big responsibilities for a Hadoop administrator, and this happens on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it's not something that you have provided the security. I mean, I can totally tell you my experience that's 60 to 70% of the issues came with the security. Okay, so how you have managed the security, how you have actually integrated Kerberos. So not only Kerberos is one of the things. I mean, how will you encrypt the data? How will you encrypt the data at rest? How will you encrypt the data flowing via wires? So all of these things are very important when you just talk about the security, and which services, which parameters you want to monitor, what all what is the frequency of those monitoring activities, because if you'll just put the nagios or ganglia kind of uh, monitoring tools, they are not just magic. I mean, they will not work unless you are going to put those configuration parameters or use cases according to which they will start working. So how will you manage the backups of these all services? So a lot of activities are there when you talk about the Hadoop administrator responsibilities. So with this, we'll talk about the today we will be keep to some basic top 5 Hadoop administration tasks which Hadoop administrator does on a day-to-day basis, and how he can actually plan the clusters, how he can maintain the clusters in the best possible way. So with this, let's talk understand first what are these top 5 Hadoop administrator tasks. So cluster planning, as I just said, is one of the most important activity for a Hadoop administrator, because this is the basic step. I mean, this is the first step before you are going to start with the Hadoop cluster management, Hadoop cluster creation. Because unless you have designed your cluster, you have architected your cluster in the way that all your clients are able to access these services, as well as the integrations, or let's say the security can be imparted to the cluster in the best possible way. Unless you are plan the cluster in such a way, then I mean, later on you will be more secure, you'll be more able to uh, manage the Hadoop cluster. So cluster planning is one of the most important aspect of the for a Hadoop administrator. Second task is how to set up your cluster. Okay, where to deploy what services. Okay, uh, where to actually put all these services in different nodes, because you are not just playing with one node or two node or 10 nodes, you are playing with 100 node cluster at least. So how to put all these services, okay, how to make more how to actually integrate these services within various nodes, how to scale your Hadoop cluster. Okay, so these all activities come in the Hadoop cluster setup. And when we talk about the Hadoop version upgrade, so there are various versions, there are various bug fixing which happens on day-to-day basis. So when you have been provided the patches, or when you are being asked to upgrade from, let's say, older version to a newer version, how will you do that, right? So these kind of things are very important from a Hadoop administration's perspective. Then adding a new node, providing the high availability to the cluster so that your cluster should not go down. How will you do plan these kind of activities? Okay, so it's more about infrastructure, but again, there's a very thin line between the Linux administrator or a Hadoop administrator. You are not going to do any just the Hadoop admin tasks. Also, you are not, sorry, Linux admin task. Also, you are not going to do the just the infrastructure task, or let's say networking things. Okay, so you are going to do the Hadoop administrator activities, in which you are going to plan for all the integrations, administration, management, monitoring, setting up the clusters, integrating the security, integrating the existing database systems, helping developers to import, export the data from RDBMS, uh, providing the encryption to the data. So how will you do these kind of activities? Okay, so uh, this is what we are going to talk about today in detail. Okay, when you are having a lot of administration tasks, but uh, today's idea is more about just giving the overview of all these services. Okay, so uh, if you have any questions, guys, I mean, you want to ask anything, or let's say you have any doubts regarding that, or later on, or anything, I mean, you can put your questions into this chat window. Okay, I'll take all the questions, and then I'll reply you directly. So just as I've got one question, that how task one and task two are different. So task one is more about how you are planning your cluster. So you are being, what number of nodes you want. Okay, how many number of nodes you want. Why do you want a 8 GB RAM? Why do you want a 46 GB RAM? Why do you want a 100 GB RAM for the name node? Okay, why do you want to put name node on the node 1? Why not on the name node 100? Okay, why do you want to have the Hive metastore server in MySQL? Why do you want to have Impala metastore server in the Oracle? Why do you have the Scoop metastore server? So these kind of questions will come up when you are planning your cluster. Okay, because you're not just dealing with, as I said, with one or two daemons, you're dealing with multiple daemons. So cluster means a group of nodes. Okay, and when we talk about Hadoop cluster, it generally is the more than 20 nodes. Okay, with if you are having bigger, or let's say you are having more capacity in the nodes, or generally it is 60 or 100 node cluster if you are having medium size cluster, or it can always go to 700 800 node cluster. Okay, so the biggest cluster on this planet is with the Yahoo. They are having like 35,000 node cluster. Okay, and generally in the organizations you will be seeing Red Hat and CentOS Linux. Okay, because both provides the security and they are providing the enterprise level support for their distributions. Okay, so generally in the organizations you will see Red Hat and CentOS Linux. So task 2 is more about setting up that cluster. When you have planned the cluster, what all settings you're going what all settings you're going to configure. Okay, why this configuration, why memory of 8 GB, why memory of 100 GB. Okay, why replication factor of 2, why replication factor block size of 512 megabyte. Okay, so when you when you actually set up the cluster, you need to always deploy the different components. Okay, when you are, let's say, setting up the Kerberos server, okay, where you should be putting the KDC, where you should be putting the authentication server or ticket granting server, where I'm going to put the Hue Kerberos server. Okay, that is more about planning or setting up the things. Okay, so you can always install this cluster on Windows as well as on Linux. Okay, but mostly in the organizations you will see on the Linux, and that's why we always recommend, or we always motivate the students to always create the cluster on Linux virtual machines. Okay, so in the class we generally use the virtual machines. So as you can see, like I am using VMware Workstation. I've got a lot of virtual machines running here. Okay, just to showcase what all things we can do. So these kind of virtual machines are not really very difficult to create. How you can set up these things, uh, like I'm not running very high-end laptop, but still I'm able to manage all these virtual machines. So how you can manage them, how you can create these things in your laptops or desktops. So we can we discuss about all these activities in our courses. Okay, DBMS administrator, Linux administrator, infrastructure guy, network administrator. Okay, really very good. I mean, they are very much recommended for taking this course. Even Hadoop developers are very much recommended to take this course, because without Hadoop administration, you cannot become very good developer. I mean, you will not really understand the internals of what Hadoop is all about without the Hadoop administration activities. Okay, but yes, you can certainly make the NameNode by installing Hadoop under Windows 7 using VMware. You can certainly do that, as I just said, but not really recommended and not really motivated that to create the Hadoop cluster on Windows machines at all. So with this, if you have further questions, guys, please put all your questions into this chat window. I'll try to reply all of them. So with this, let's talk about first activity, how to plan the Hadoop cluster. So here I'm just taking a very small part of Hadoop, okay, and we'll talk about planning that only. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, this is just a 6-node cluster. Okay, and in this 6-node cluster, how you are planning the RAM, hard disk, operating system, power supplies, Ethernet cards. So why you are doing that, what is the reasoning behind that, what is the motivation behind it, you need to plan that thing. So this is a typical cluster use case where you will see the the master daemons like active NameNode and standby NameNode having more RAM and less hard disk comparing to the DataNodes, where DataNodes is more about storing more data. Okay, so when you are planning the when you're just planning the Hadoop cluster, what all let's say reporting tools. So for example, Pallavi is asking, tell in BI tool, for example, Tableau software, Hadoop technology is being used. So Hadoop cluster is being this is one thing, and Tableau cluster is another thing. So Tableau will be used as a reporting tool which will fetch the data from the Hadoop cluster, and then it will report all of your data as a reports, I mean, in the to the customers. Okay, so you can always customize the block size or application factor on the fly as well, according to the projects. So that is totally being, I mean, in different organizations, you will see not only Tableau, Talent is there, then you have got Pentaho, then you have got uh, Telio. So lot of different tools are there for reporting as well. So generally we have like dev environments and system integration environments, then SIT environments, VPT, OAuth, UAT. Then we move to the higher versions, pre-prod, production, and disaster recovery environments. Accordingly, we actually plan our Hadoop cluster. Okay, so we'll talk about it, Somendu, how you can actually customize the block size. Okay, just give me some seconds, some time. So this is another important aspect when you're planning your Hadoop cluster. How will you grow your cluster based upon the storage capacity? So seeking cluster growth on the storage capacity is generally a good method to use, because there is no way to find out how much of RAM or CPU your application, which has not yet been created, is going to take. So based upon the cluster storage, sorry, based upon the data storage size, we generally can create the Hadoop cluster. So let's say your data is growing by 5 terabytes per week, and then if you are setting an application factor of 3 times, which means 15 terabytes of extra storage space is always required every week, if you are considering that you have 5 hard disk drives, per drive at least 3 terabyte storage. So this is one important way to do. And then how you are planning the configurations for your hardware. So general configuration is like 24 gigabyte of RAM for the slave nodes, and then 4 into 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte of hard disk drive with the JBOD configurations, and without any RAID, because you already have a replication factor in the Hadoop distributed file system. Along with it, we have given some special configuration as well, where it is being said, and it is actually being proved, that more the number of nodes, okay, maybe slightly less faster, more distributed the data is, and certainly more faster they will. Okay, so a cluster with more nodes will perform better and faster than one with fewer, slightly faster nodes. So it's good practice to always use more number of nodes, but certainly it has its own challenges as well. Like it is going to take a lot of space in the data center, and then other networking aspects, or when you're cluster decommissioning and nodes decommissioning process, all other challenges will be there. But yes, from performance perspective, you will see some of the organizations using these special configurations as well. So this is how you plan the cluster. This is how you think about that. Okay, how will my cluster grow in the future? Okay, what should be the ideal capacity for the mappers and reducers? Okay, how to plan for the number of mappers and number of reducers? Okay, so you can always plan for a Hadoop cluster, I mean, in different modes. Okay, so let's take an example here. So you can either create a standalone mode, which is quite fine. You can also create a pseudo distributed mode cluster, which is on a single node, and you can also have a fully distributed node cluster where you are actually planning all the Hadoop daemons. They are segregated on different nodes. Okay, they are all distributed. Okay, so in this case, basically, what I have done is I have created a 5-node cluster. Okay, just to showcase here, and you can see I've got NameNode, Resource Manager, DataNodes 1, 2, and 3. Okay, basically this secondary NameNode is acting like as a DataNode 1 here. Okay, so in this way, I want to plan so I have planned that, okay, these are the 5 nodes I have. How will my daemons going to be segregated here? Okay, so I have got 5 virtual machines running. On those 5 virtual machines, I have got Hadoop setup, and I can build all these cluster on just the virtual machines. Okay, so just as a POC cluster, a testing cluster, we can build our cluster on some virtual machines. So this is a Linux machine. Actually, I can run all the Linux commands, and I'm using the CentOS 6.5, right? So when you are planning the Hadoop cluster, you have to, do these kind of activities. You have to actually build the cluster, deploy some services, and then manage them, and then monitor them later on. If one of the services is going down, how will you make them up? Okay. Can we get the main flavor of Hadoop by installing it on a standalone machine? No, Somindu. So that's what I am also not doing, because you will not get the real test of Hadoop cluster unless you are maintaining it. You are installing it on a multiple machines. Okay, so main flavor will certainly not come up on the single machine at all. Okay, and one of the question was like how you can actually customize the block size. So you can always go to the hdfs site.xml. This is one of the configuration file which Hadoop uses, and change the block size parameter. So currently I don't have the block size parameter, so I can always create with one property, and I can mention here what should be the ideal block size. So let's say I'm looking for the 256 MB. So dfs.block.size, and then converting this 256 megabytes into bytes. 256 multiplied by 1024, whatever the number is, you need to put that number here. And that's all. So if you now start your Hadoop cluster, this is what you need to do. So create the Hadoop distributed file system, and then you can start your services. So you can see how the NameNode is coming up, then the DataNodes are coming up, secondary NameNode is coming up on the version 2 cluster. This is how you can monitor all these services. So as I just said, my first node itself is acting as the NameNode and secondary NameNode, and then other nodes are acting as DataNodes. So then we can always log in into the resource manager and then start the yarn services. Okay, like resource manager, node managers, and then monitor them via this a simple for loop command from Linux. So you can easily view these things either from the command line or from the web interface. So just do a report and you will see the data nodes available. Now we have got 3 data nodes available with the total disk capacity. So how can we then set up these things? Certainly, Akash, I mean, it's going to be, it's a very broad topic. Okay, it's a very broad question you have asked from me. Okay, I mean, that's what our course is all about, right? So it's not about, just showcasing, in theory. Okay, it's about all practical stuff. Generally, I take, most of the Hadoop admin classes, and I always, believe in showing the practical aspect of what Hadoop administration is instead of, doing things practically, theoretically. So this is what I was trying to explain earlier, that when you're planning the cluster, how will you deploy these things? So how you're going to you know edit these files, what all configurations you need to have in these files. Okay, so this is just the command prompt of Linux actually. That's right, Pallavi. So I was showing the command prompt only for Linux activities, and these are the configuration file names and description of files we have. Okay, so then lot of Hadoop daemons, what all they do. So NameNode daemon, which is running as master daemon, master node of the Hadoop distributed file system. You have the DataNode daemons, which are running as the slave nodes. They are basically used for storing all the data. Resource manager basically runs on the master node, and it's working as a global resource manager for the Hadoop cluster, basically for the jobs you are submitting to the Hadoop cluster. Node manager, which is responsible for monitoring the resources on each slave node, and you have got the job history server, which is responsible for servicing all the job history related requests. Basically, you can monitor all these things as well on the web interface. So just to give you an idea here, you go to a web interface and find out what all data nodes you can plan and how these data nodes are behaving in the Hadoop cluster. So similarly, you can go for the resource manager, and then you can see your number of node managers currently running in the Hadoop cluster. So this is just one of the very basic activity which you can do. I will not say it's a very difficult thing to actually plan this Hadoop cluster. Okay, so the very first important thing, and the next thing is more about how you can actually do the version upgrade. So when you are actually having Hadoop version 1, okay, and you want to upgrade it to Hadoop next version of Hadoop, okay, how will you do that? So how is the cluster integrations maintained, like checks between NameNode, DataNode, resource manager? That's a good question, Vijay. So it's all done via the RPC protocol. Okay, so it's resource remote procedural calls which actually happen during the cluster, and then accordingly uh, all these services are they talk to each other. Okay, so it's all RPC calls only mostly. Okay, quorum heartbeat is required actually when you are actually setting up the high availability. Okay, so quorum heartbeat is totally different. Okay, we are going to talk about that also in a while. Okay, so let's take it step by step. Let's talk about the version upgrade. So when you are actually planning for the version upgrade, so we generally do all these steps for the version upgrade. So stopping the map reduce cluster. So let me give you a brief idea about that as well, how you can actually have a version upgrade in the Hadoop cluster. So let me bring down these services node, sorry, and let me start a newer cluster. Okay, so as I just said, that's my second set of machines only for upgrades. Okay, so how you can actually upgrade a 6 node Hadoop version 1 cluster to 6 node Hadoop version 2 cluster. What all things are being required for that, right? So we'll talk about that now as soon as the machine starts. So in the meantime, you can see what are the different steps involved in it. Okay, so taking the backup is one of the most important aspect of a big data cluster, because you are going to have a lot of data in the Hadoop distributed file system. Okay, so take the data backup, then take all the configurations file backup, applications data backup, metadata backup, and then after that start installing the newer version of Hadoop. Okay, that's what the upgrade is all about. Okay, so if I log in into the first name node in the Hadoop cluster, and let's see how it actually works. Right, so this is my name node, and again, as I just said, it has got both the versions of Hadoop already set up. So Hadoop version 1.2.1, I do have this right now, and I've got Hadoop 2.2.0 as well. Okay, so what all different set of commands. So let's say first let us check whether we have got Hadoop version 1 or 2. So you can see currently I'm running with version 1. Okay, so if I want to upgrade it, Hadoop name node hyphen format. So first I will run the Hadoop version 1 cluster, and we'll start the distributed file system. And I'll put some data inside it so that later on I can verify whether my upgrade is really successful or not. So I put some configuration files inside this testing directory. As you can see, some data now is lying inside the Hadoop distributed file system. So what I want to do now, I want to, you can certainly take the backup, you can run all those queries, but just to, save some time and, to move to the next level, let's say I want to upgrade this Hadoop cluster. So I'll do a stop dfs.sh so that it can stop all the daemons. And then I'll run because I already have the Hadoop 2 also set up on this cluster. So you can see I've got a bash profile file. Okay, so will copy this bash profile file to all the nodes, because my cluster is already set up there. And now you can see it has started recognizing the next version of Hadoop, which is Hadoop 2.2.0. But this does not mean that Hadoop is really upgraded. Okay, so to upgrade the Hadoop cluster, you basically need to run the command Hadoop daemon.sh start NameNode hyphen upgrade. So as soon as you run this command, it's going to start the it's going to actually upgrade the Hadoop cluster, and you can actually identify the same thing from the file called version. So if you see, currently the version has now gone from -41 to -47, and to show you how this actually happens, you can actually identify the same thing from the logs. So just to showcase here, go to the logs, and you can see now old layout version and the new layout version. So how this actually happens, what is the reasoning behind it, uh, why we actually plan for the upgrades and all. I mean, so a lot of things are history is there behind the upgrade part as well, which we can do. And then you can start the DFS as always, start all your daemons, and then you can actually start your node manager, resource manager if you want to. You can always verify all of these services by simply running a for loop and see how it is actually running all the different daemons. So this is now more about running the Hadoop 2 version. Okay. So any questions, guys? Anything you feel excited? Anything you feel that okay, this is not possible, or how I mean, let's say you are from different backgrounds, how will you plan for this? Okay. So any questions? Inderpreet, Ravi, guys, any questions? Sandeep, Hardik, Ramendra, Iswajit, Vimal, guys, any questions you have regarding this? Okay. So we actually complete all these activities in very detail. Okay, in the classes. Okay. Uh, this is just to showcase how we plan our activities in the classes. Okay, what all things we actually do. Certainly these are the top activities, and these are the important activities when we build the cluster. So there's a question from Dhamendra, what is the difference between standby node and secondary name node? So the standby node is more about it's more used when you are actually using the high availability. Okay, secondary name node is not something about high availability. Okay, I mean, even if you are trying to build the secondary name node, you need to have some manual intervention, you need to have some downtime for making the secondary name node as standby name. Okay, any downtime required while doing the upgrade activities? Yes, certainly when you're upgrading from version 1 to version 2, which is a major upgrade, Hardik, so you need to have certainly some downtime for that. Okay, but in the newer versions, I mean, you will see some rolling upgrades as well. Okay, which is very difficult to showcase as in the class as well, when you're actually a lot of activities are going on. So but yes, during the rolling upgrade you can certainly do the upgrade without any downtime. That's totally possible. Can we have Kerberos topic in this section? So not only Kerberos, actually Sandeep, we actually conducted one whole webinar only on the security part. So Kerberos is one part. How about ACLs? Okay, how about providing the security to your jobs? Okay, so those kind of security are also there. So we did some webinar on that, and please reach out again. Please do keep looking out for the Edureka pages on what all different webinars we are conducting in the future. Why do we use an identity node in the Hadoop? Identity node. Not sure on this, Biswajit. I've never heard of this term, identity node. If you have any different term on this, I can explain that. Can I do Hadoop upgrade in Hadoop secure cluster? Absolutely, Sandeep. I mean, actually, it is being done in the secure cluster. Okay, so you build the cluster, then you secure that cluster, and later on, when some bug fixing happen, or when say you want to upgrade because you want some newer features, then only you do the upgrades, right? So upgrade is not a feature which keeps on happening every 2 months or 3 months, right? So you need to plan for it. and certainly it happens in the secure cluster only. Okay, so this is another thing, guys, which as a Hadoop admin you will be doing in the on a day-to-day basis. So we'll talk about our next activity, which is again very important from the administration's perspective, how you can actually add or remove a data node, because Hadoop's principle works on all these scaling activities, right? So you can scale horizontally scale your cluster, means you can add the resources as and when you require without having any downtime. Okay, so that's what I'm just trying to show you, Dharmendra. Let me show this thing practically now. How, what is the minimum configuration required for having 2 data node cluster and 1 name node cluster on VMware? So here I'm running with the same kind of setup which you're actually asking here. Let me showcase. So this is my 2 data node cluster and 1 name node. So this is what I have planned, and I've also planned 1 new data node which you can always add in the Hadoop cluster. So let us understand that how you can actually plan for it. Okay, again, not a very tough task, because we do teach in such a way that these tasks look very easy. And I mean, honestly, these are not very difficult things, because you can actually plan for activities if you know how these steps actually work, what all things happen internally. Then you can easily make out the sense of what all problems you will get and how to resolve those issues. So this is my cluster right now, and this is what I'm talking. So we have got 3 cluster, 2 nodes basically, NameNode 1 and DataNode 2, on which my cluster services will run. So let me start some services here. You can see it is going to start only on NameNode 1 and DataNode 2. And if I start the MapRed services, it's just going to take only 2 nodes. So the idea is how you can actually add this third node in the same Hadoop cluster, because if you see the Hadoop DFS admin hyphen report command, okay, you'll see only 2 data nodes are right now available. Okay, so let's say I want to plan for more Hadoop distributed file system storage. How can I do that? So first and foremost is to have the newer data node in the cluster, which I already have, and to have the same set of Hadoop and JDK versions which all other nodes have. After that, basically the idea is to add this node. So go into the includes file, create a file called includes, and add the new data node and the existing data nodes into the same file. In the hdfs site.xml, you need to uncomment this property, which is called dfs.host. So if you are using the dfs.host, provide the file name which is being required to add this new node. And if you're running if you're actually decommissioning if you're decommissioning a data node, just put the parameter dfs.host.exclude. Okay, and here you need to give the excludes file. So the idea is then how you will actually add this new data node. So for that, run the command Hadoop dfs admin hyphen refresh nodes. So this will actually add your newer data node in the cluster. So my services are still running, as you can see. Let me show you. And the third data node is still not added. So what I need to do to get this added? So if you see the report command, what it says, the report command says the third data node and the decommission state is normal, but there's no data as such right now. But data nodes available are 2, 3 in total, and 1 is dead. So how will you bring this data node up? Go to the newer data node and start this data node itself. Okay, because there are no services running, that's why it is showing as dead. So start a new data node and task tracker. That's all. So that's what you need to do. And now you can see we have got all our services running on the cluster. This is we plan. data node and task tracker services co-located on the data nodes, and name node service as a separate node in the cluster. And now if you see the report as well, you will see 3 DataNodes should be available by now. As you can see, it's still not coming up. It's going to take some time to bring this node up and running in the Hadoop cluster. Okay, it's going to take some time, and then this node will get added into the Hadoop cluster as well. Okay, so commissioning decommissioning process is going to be again a very important task for a Hadoop administrator, because you plan for more number of data nodes in the future as your data actually grows, and then certainly it's a task that how you can add and decommission the in the hardware which is actually being degraded. How will you decommission those data nodes from the cluster, and then how will you balance that cluster? Okay, how your cluster will be balanced, that is another important challenging activity that you need to do. So some steps we have just written, on the fly. So how will you add or commission the new data nodes in the Hadoop cluster? Okay, so makes sense, guys, or is it just I'm talking and you guys are listening, or do you think that it's a challenging thing? It's going to be difficult. It's going to be something you should learn for, or any other questions, doubts regarding this? Any, let's say you're from different backgrounds, you have some different idea or different important points. Okay, how will you manage these kind of activities? Okay, one important problem which I always hear from the different people, that okay, we are from different backgrounds. Let's say I was also from different backgrounds. I was from Java background, and then I started learning this Hadoop technology. So it's really difficult to switch to the different technology. Okay, so how will you cope up with that kind of thing? So from my perspective, when I started learning it, it was very difficult because I did not have this Edureka kind of thing, and honestly, I did not have that money as well, to spend on Edureka courses. So I started learning of my own. Okay, it was a bit difficult to understand in the beginning, but then I found out that okay, you cannot actually learn from your own. It's because it's a big data thing. It's a huge thing. Okay, so I did some work, and then I collected something, and then I took some sessions from Edureka. Not, it was not actually from Edureka. My company actually funded that, and then we got some good knowledge, and then after that I've reached to now some point where I can actually do a lot of activities of my own. In fact, I have got good experience now. So worked on day-to-day basis. In my experience, I have built around 50 odd enterprise level clusters. Okay, so uh, now I totally get like what is Cloudera all about, or Hortonworks all about, or let's say Apache all about, or what is Hadoop all about, or Hive, HBase, Impala, all this stuff. Okay, so it's based upon Java. It's Hadoop is all written in Java technology. Okay, so the last session for our last activity for our today's session is more about providing the high availability to the Hadoop cluster. So high availability means like when you are having 2 master daemons running. Okay, and master daemons, when we talk about master daemons, means major daemon which is called NameNode. Okay, so how will you actually make it highly available? Okay, if one of the NameNode goes down, how will the automatic failover happen? Okay, so question from Vijay before we talk about this: how the redistribution of data happens when nodes are added or removed? Redistribution of data does not happen automatically, Vijay. Newer data will certainly start flowing into the newer data nodes, but not the existing data. Okay, and there the role of Hadoop admin again comes up, where you are being asked to balance your cluster, and that's where we use the balancer utility. Okay, so through the balancer utility, you actually need to upgrade, or let's say to balance your Hadoop cluster, to balance your data store. Okay, so let's talk about our last activity for today, guys, which is Hadoop high availability. So high availability is like high availability to the name node. No redistribution. How about in case of failure of node? In case of failure of node, it will happen automatically because their name node looks after the data. Okay, in the decommissioning process, when you are actually adding a new data node, okay, no data will have on that data node on board initially. Okay, there won't be any data on that newer data. Okay, that's what I'm saying. When you add a new data node, the newer data which is flowing into the Hadoop distributed file system will start flowing into the newer data node. But for the existing data, to balance that cluster, you need to force your name node to start moving the blocks from the other data nodes to this new data node. Okay, that you need to force. So at that point of time, you need to take the help of balancer utility. So in this high availability cluster, guys, we need to have the usage of Zookeeper. So there was one question asked from me earlier, how to use the Zookeeper. So Zookeeper basically is acting as a acting as a coordinator node between the two master name nodes. Okay, when you have two master name nodes, how they will coordinate between each other. Correct, Kashyap. So you can say it as a watchdog, but it is more about synchronizing the information between two name nodes. Okay, where does it store the data? So we'll talk about that in this case. So first of all, to bring the Hadoop high availability, you need to start your journal nodes. Okay, so in this case, we have got three nodes, two name nodes and one data node. So start your journal node, which is going to basically take all the edit logs from the name node. Okay, so you can see first journal node has come up, and log into the second name node and start the journal node here as well. Log into the data node, start three journal nodes. So basically, you're going to start the three journal nodes in the cluster. As you can see, with this command, three journal nodes have come up. Okay. After that, format your name node. Okay, so that you can start the name node daemon. So this is my first name node. Because it's a master node, it's very critical to have this kind of service up and running all the time. Okay, and that's why it's been given as highly available in the Hadoop version 2. It has been made highly available. So go to the name node 2 and format the name node 2. So you can format the name node 2 by having the same set of metadata from the name node 1. So do a bootstrap standby, and your metadata will automatically get copied from the name node 1 like this. And after that, start the name node, the second name node, and you will see the name node will also get started on this second name node. Okay, but both are right now, nobody is active, nobody is standby, because we have not yet started running the failover controllers who will actually do the failovers. You can see both the name nodes are up and running right now. So the next command is basically, the idea is to format the Zookeeper failover controller. So to format, we run the command. Sorry, first we'll start the Zookeeper server on all the nodes. So with the command zkserver.sh start, you can start the Zookeeper servers like this. And now you can see with this, our all Zookeeper servers are also running. So you can see a quorum peer main kind of daemon on these three nodes. Now I'm showing this to you, I totally get that, but why you are running this, or what is the plan behind it? Okay, so these kind of details we talk about in our classes. Okay, so why do you plan this thing actually? Okay, so after that, format your Zookeeper okay, which will actually create your directory. And if you see now, so this actually nobody shows in any of the things. If you go into the Zookeeper client, here actually you'll find out that it has created a highly available directory. Okay, so this is the configuration synchronization it is actually having. And right now you can see there is no data, because as soon as I'll start the failover controllers, it will put all these data. So to start the failover controllers, ZKFC. No, so resource manager is not, will not act like Zookeeper is not your resource manager, not at all. So Zookeeper failover controller will come up, and as soon as it will come up, you will see now it will bring some data. Just a sec. So you can see here it has got active standby electrolog. So this is the actual data which you will not see, which nobody will show you actually how these things work. Okay, what kind of synchronization, when you say configuration synchronization, native services, what that actually means. This is the information which Zookeeper is storing, and that's why you are getting the this actually highly available. So if you run the command get service, here you will get the idea. You can see now NameNode 1 is active and NameNode 2 is standby. Okay, so just to test it out, okay, let's say kill the active NameNode process with the command 1577. So you can kill this process, and now log into the NameNode 2 and do a get service state here. You will see your cluster will still be ready. You can see now NameNode 2 has become active, while NameNode 1 is not reachable because you have just brought down the NameNode. Okay, NameNode 1 is right now down. Okay, so when you're actually setting up the cluster, Hardik, I mean, certainly depends upon a lot of activities, lot of key points. Okay, starting from how you're planning the cluster, what all number of data nodes you have, what is the size of your data, what kind of applications you are running. So a lot of different key points are there when you actually set up the block size of a cluster. And that's what I said again. I'm saying this again, that you can actually have different block sizes for different data. Okay, so let's say there are two projects, okay, and both of the projects want to store their data in the one Hadoop cluster. So you can always have different block sizes for both the projects at the same time. Okay, does not matter what is your configuration, does not matter with that. Okay, so this is what our failover architecture is actually. When you are actually setting up this cluster, how your failover controller, active failover controller or standby failover controller actually works, and what is the importance of Zookeeper in this high availability architecture. So this small image you can actually get some idea. So this is all about the things. These are the top 5 Hadoop administration tasks, guys. Certainly you can do. And one of the most important thing which you will see in today's market is how the job trends are there for Hadoop administrators. So this is a picture taken from the Indeed.com. I mean, how the job trends are on Indeed.com for Hadoop administrators, and you can see it is growing and growing, and it will keep on going for another 4 to 5 years, I'll say. So if you have any questions, guys, you want to ask, please go ahead. Uh, I tried my best to show you some key activities you need to do. Uh, you can reach out to our sales team post session. You can reach out via our Twitter handles, Facebook, or you can use #Edureka, #AskEdureka for the queries. Okay. We'll provide a lot of information in our sessions. We provide a lot of we show a lot of activities. These are just the basics one. Uh, Top one, I'll say, but a lot of other administration operational activities are still left. So that's all from my side. Please do not forget to fill the feedback forms, guys. If you like the session, okay. We'll keep on providing more webinars, such kind of webinars in the futures, and do reach out. Do take a look in our Edureka page about about the security webinar as well. So how you can provide the security to the Hadoop cluster. We do have that kind of webinar also in the future. So that's all, guys, from my side. Thank you all for joining in. It was really nice session with you guys. Nice questions. And couple of questions I can see here. If I want to configure on my laptop, then what is the minimum hardware configuration required for having two data node cluster and one name node cluster on VMware? 4 gigs of RAM is what I'm looking for, Dharmendra. Not more than that. 4 gigabytes of RAM. Is just a Hadoop administrator enough, or should I be an administrator role before? No, it's totally enough, Srihari. That's what I said in the beginning. So yes, basics of Linux should be a prerequisite. It's a prerequisite for our course. Okay, but apart from that, you don't really need to be an administrator in the administrator role to become a Hadoop administrator. Okay, it's not really being required. Okay, so that's all, guys. Thanks all for joining in, and see you in the future webinars. Cheers. Good day. Good night.